Hello, welcome to Framework, a podcast about Dragon Age 2, 2011's premier mine ownership simulator. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as always, is John Bernard.
Hey, it's me, John. How's it going?
It's going all right. We finished up Dragon Age 2, which, was kind of, never going to be a bright spot of the Bioware Omnibus. We're not looking forward to this one. I guess there's a few people trying to reclaim Dragon Age 2 at this point, but
going into this, I was excited. I was like, Dragon Age 2, better than its reputation. I'm going to enjoy this. This is great. That's how I started Dragon Age 2 this time.
It beat you down, though, by the end, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've listened to the first episode of us talking about Dragon Age 2, I don't think we've ever had a Bioware Omnibus episode where that's been that negative, right? I mean, I was almost surprised.
Yeah, because that was defensive of Mass Effect 3, which, gets a lot of hatred.
Right.
And, Jade Empire is not particularly loved, but we weren't like, this is terrible. Exactly.
No, not at all.
Dragon Age 2 is, I guess, sort of uniquely frustrating among this lot for me. And I thought maybe turning down the difficulty would smooth over some of the gameplay issues and let the sort of core story, which is pretty strong, really shine. But unfortunately, it's, we harped on the gameplay issues plenty last time, but it's also design issues that I worry that in harping on this stuff, make it sound like, they were creatively bankrupt or something. Like they didn't have any ideas or whatever, but it's not like, we know why they did a bad job. When they did a bad job, it's because there was mandated to take a 3-year development window and cram it down to closer to 1 year, and corners have to be cut.
Yeah, this game is overflowing with ideas in many ways. It's just not a good game, unfortunately. Yeah. Like the playing a game part of this is really the issue. And, that's too bad. And especially as you go into the game and get deeper into it, the first act of the game that we talked about last time really is just a lot of fetch quests and wandering around the same maps and stuff like that and getting used to a not great combat system. And I mean, I guess technically that's what the rest of the game is as well. But it has the story kind of coming in, the narrative of Dragon Age 2, and the characters are sort of, getting themselves comfortable a little bit more. They're establishing themselves, and you can see what they were after with this game. You can see the story they wanted to tell, and it's good. It's also kind of like the sort of the linchpin narrative of Dragon Age in a way. It's not a big grand quest, but it kind of undergirds all the major ideas and themes and power structures existent in Thedas in an interesting way that kind of makes the other games more interesting as well. So there's good stuff here, obscured by difficulties of just gameplay problems to beat the band, really.
It expands the lore way past the sort of Grey Wardens and the Blight, which is the crux of the first game, and also the sort of most, fantasy 101, just D&D module stuff out of it, and makes builds out this world, and does that by zooming in smaller on one particular city state rather than going wider, which is, a pretty deft narrative trick, I think, for this sort of
cool. Yeah. And this format. Is why I remembered loving this game and thinking this was so great. Now this is, I think, the third time I've played Dragon Age 2, and I'm just like, I can never play this game again. The combat and the gameplay loop is so frustrating and annoying that, it's just difficult to overcome. That's, I guess, my ultimate come away with it this time. But it gets more fun as it goes, because, well, it's contracting, I guess, as a game. It's there's less and less fetch quest bullshit as you go through it. Always more than you want.
Yeah, there's still plenty. Like you said, the narrative here in Act 2, as we go for a couple year time jump after our big expedition to Deep Road, and now we're rich, and everybody's kind of settled in. This is where the story starts to settle in and become more interesting and more fun to interact with your companions and all that. but it's also where those gameplay limitations and the design and graphical limitations start to really make themselves felt more, because we kind of talked about last time, the concept of we are going to stay in this one city and track what this person's sort of rise to power within this city over the course of almost a decade, with these couple time jumps. That is cool. But what you need to make that work, I think, is a lot more variation. Like when there's a time jump, now we're in Act 2, the city needs to look different in some noticeable way. Like the maps need to be laid out differently. There needs to be new NPCs or new areas. This unlocks the Kunari compound, but there's nothing to do in there except for get yelled at by the Arashok. And especially as you get to Act 3 too, that's where the problem of repeating the same maps over and over only gets worse as time goes on, and we're repeating them for the 9th time versus the 6th time. It's just that much more frustrating every time.
There's ways around this, but the concept kind of does demand that Kirkwall be the most interesting video game city ever, or one of them, like on the high end, and it's just not, you get used to it really fast, and there's not much else to see or do there that you haven't already done several times.
They refine this. Even like Mass Effect 3, the Citadel is not as central to that game as Kirkwall is to Dragon Age 2. But they do the thing I'm talking about, where after act breaks or certain, main story markers, the Citadel changes. The layout changes. The conversations you're encountering are different. There's different people in different locations.
And a game of this kind, an RPG based on, relationships and choices, you should be able to, like, this city looks different because of your actions, is such an obvious sell. Like, that's a natural thing that you can have that is cool and interesting. And then it increases replay value. If if you do it differently, this person's in charge, or you're going to see a different version of this map now because, you back this faction or whatever. Nothing like that exists in this. Nothing changed. I think I mentioned last time, Fenris's house, went into it in the second act and found corpses from the first act were still on the ground. I think there's something about Fenris being, a little bit stuck in the past, but I don't believe it was an intentional writing decision that the rooms just don't change. They just keep the exact same look as they have several years.
Yeah, it's fine that Fenris didn't fix the place up, but didn't really make himself comfortable. But like I said, that's not an intentional creative decision. That's just a seam showing.
And it's also the inherent promise of this premise. That's what's cool about this idea, in some ways, is seeing the thing change. And if it doesn't change, it's like, well, I guess it's not cool then. It's you're not doing the thing that this premise allows and promises, really. So, that sucks. That's too bad.
Yeah. Well, the part that it does deliver on that, I think, is the relationships with the companions, because those do change or can change based on your decisions. And, if there's replay value to Dragon Age 2, I think that's where it comes from.
It's all writing. Nothing visually changes is the point. It's all like, can we do this without actually spending more computing power, money, time? Can we just do this all with people with writing and
with the same assets?
Yeah. Then they can do it. If it's a situation that can be solved that way, it's in this game, and it's pretty cool, probably.
Yeah. So let's get into it. What are our companions up to a few years later? After the Hawks have settled into our uptown estate, and I forget. My sibling joined the Grey Wardens. I think yours died down in the Deep Roads, right?
No, she joined the Chantry, or the Circle. She joined the Circle against her will, kind of. And I was like, oh, no, that's too bad. But there was nothing to be done about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Aveline has become captain of the guard now. And her sort of companion quest for Act 2 is helping her sort of coerce an underling into a romantic relationship, which is actually a ton of fun. We could we could concern troll about power dynamics and blah blah blah, but she's got a crush on one of the other guardsmen and doesn't know how to do that. So you have to. I mean, I like that they don't go straight up Cyrano de Bergerac on it, but there's some fun sort of comedy writing around her about. I think at one point when she's trying to make small talk with a guy, she says, "Oh, it's a fine night for an evening, isn't it?"
Yeah, this is all good stuff. Aveline, yeah, it definitely solidified that Aveline was sort of my best character in this playthrough. As a sort of, to be pejorative, sort of a white woman Karen type of hawk is sort of my what I was going with this time. Got along just great with Aveline. So state power, is good.
I mean, I was more of a flippant, slightly roguish male hawk, but I still got along great with Aveline just because, I don't know, I liked her. I made some effort to stay on her good side. You can. Same. I do like, this is one of those rare instances from this era of video games where they give you romance options to try and flirt with her, but she just, no matter what you do, will not reciprocate. You have been fully friend zoned by Aveline in this game.
It's interesting. I'm almost kind of like, I wonder to what end that, but it's fine. It's fine. This is a game that is that will give you those sort of dead end romance paths. Usually you either just can't, it's usually you can romance the character or not, and they don't give you really options to do so. Dragon Age is a little bit better about that, I think. They tend to give you that little, do you want to flirt with this person, and have it get shut down sometimes. This is the one where you can kind of have like long-term relationships that don't go anywhere. Dragon Age 2.
Yeah, Varric's the same way. I think you can get a flirt option from time to time there, but he will never have it. I saw somewhere that apparently Varric is now canonically asexual. I don't feel like that was the intent going into this game.
No, he seems like he fucks quite a bit, to be perfectly frank. It's sort of his persona.
Yeah,
but I guess not. I guess not. That is mere surmise, sir.
It is. It is odd. I guess. I mean, I guess there's something interesting there. If that was the idea, to do what is the sort of like charming rogue who's not interested in sleeping with anybody? Like, what does that look like? Maybe there's nothing there actually, but it's something I haven't seen before.
That's kind of along the lines of the subversions of characters that this game is interested in. The beardless dwarf who is charming and uses a bow and arrow in combat, and that that's or I don't know. We talked about this. The death mage who's actually a sweet little girl. All that stuff. It kind of goes hand in hand with that, but this does seem like something that plays out over the next two games as well. Asexual Varric, but something to put a cap in for sure.
Yeah. I think it's. I mean, a bit realistically, I think the asexual Varric thing probably arises out of how they wanted Varric to be a sort of continuing presence through these games, and it's way easier to thread him through multiple games without a whole bunch of romance, like branching romance options, tying things in knots.
Well, we'll have to play Veilguard, which is neither of us have touched yet, and was of course subject to a lot of angry woke accusations at the time. So maybe they get into Varric's asexuality a little more directly in that one.
Oh, quite possibly, yeah. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
How exciting!
In this one, in Act 2 here, Varric's deal is that Bartrand resurfaces after betraying us in the Deep Roads at the end of the first act, and we have to go and kill our way through all of his guards, and we find out that he has gone insane worshiping this red lyrium idol. And you can sort of, it's one of the things where you can stay Varric's hand from killing his brother and releasing him, or let him kill his brother to give him closure.
I killed him, had him died. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. He seemed pretty far gone at that point.
Yeah, he's like he's like killing his servants or something, or having them fight each other for sport, something like what is exactly
he's sacrificing them some sort of that's your blood ritual Dragon Age stuff,
right? Yeah, this game definitely goes there with a lot of people getting killed in rituals and shit like that. A lot of Satan worshipy kind of stuff in this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, the third act is there's a full blown satanic panic going on in Kirkwall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there is some fire to go with that smoke, like you said. There's quite a bit of it's actually going on in this game.
Well, yeah, when we get to the Templar Mage conflict, I mean that's the thing that's unique about this. It's just like, well, I want to have an opinion on this that is the right one, but man, these mages certainly do turn into demons a lot.
Right. Well, the one thing I like about Varric's side quest here is it's one of the glancingly few times that it takes advantage of the framing device.
Yeah.
This thing where like initially he goes in there, it's just Varric, and you got like sort of God mode super thing on where you're one-shotting all these hordes of guards and they're exploding. And then you get to Bartrand and he like grovels and says, "Oh, you were always the smarter and better one, and Mom loved you more," or whatever. And it cuts back to Cassandra interrogating him and saying bullshit. And yeah, so he goes back, fine, it actually went like this, and then you do it the normal way when it's harder and all of that. But that's something, that it feels like the game wanted to be doing a bit more of, but they just didn't have time to implement it very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's another cool idea that they weren't able to implement. Story of their life on this one, unfortunately. But yeah, it's cool when it does pop in. I don't know. It might have got annoying if it was in the game a lot, perhaps, but it certainly doesn't get the chance here.
Yeah. But it's, there's also just good buddy stuff. Varric is a great one to have around because he also has, Bioware's getting pretty good at this by now. Having all your companion characters develop sort of distinct individual relationships amongst themselves. And Varric kind of has a buddy relationship with everybody, except for maybe Carver. They don't get along great. although they do seem to hang out actually after hours, according to some of the banter. So he still gets a lot better with Carver than anybody else does.
And my impression is Carver's sort of a wet blanket. I mean, I didn't get him this time, obviously, but not a fun hang. Sort of in the whiny guy Bioware mold, a bit of a Caden or a Karth, or is that inaccurate? Is he more of a Spitfire? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's more of a jerk.
Okay.
Everybody's like party interactions with him except for Varric is just telling him how much he sucks. Except I guess Isabella just sort of like is more of prick teasing him, I guess.
That's fine.
Well, yeah, Isabella. We can talk about Isabella here, I guess. She's
sure,
she's got a relationship with Aveline that is quite something. There is a lot of like back and forth sort of. She calls her a prude. She calls her a slut, and it can get kind of fairly nasty. But through it all, you actually can see a trait of Isabella genuinely liking her, and there are sort of friends by the end.
I think Isabella is one of the better written characters because the sort of contradictions sort of live within her rather easily. They sit well upon the character and play well with the voice actor. My sort of church lady Hawk was not really on Isabella's wavelength at all, which resulted in them not getting along well. And of course, I get lost Isabella as quickly as possible, frankly, in this playthrough. And I know you can do better. I looked into it and it was like, yeah, you can keep her around. She can be an important character for you, but it did not happen because I was too busy role playing.
Yeah, I did the Isabella romance this time. Because. Well, I said, as you remember last time, I got by your getting to this game first, I got backed into playing the exact same type of character I played the first time through. And that time I did a Meryl romance that I don't remember being like super special or anything. So I went this time thinking that at least in this act, second act of the game, there's some dramatic potential to being in a romance with Isabella. It's all right. I don't know if I ever fully bought that this was a great love for the ages or anything. And I don't know. Isabella's writing can be very cartoonish in her.
Sure.
Let's call it sex positivity.
Is there a really strong romance in this game? Anywhere? Is there one that exists at all, really?
I think it would have to be Anders. But now I've played the game twice.
I've never played that. Yeah. But I don't know. Even that, I bet, is disappointing. Oh,
Well,
I don't know.
it's not Sebastian.
Oh, dude,
I can
dude,
promise you.
I went all in on the Sebastian romance this time, and let me tell you what, I feel it was I really got my just desserts there. Let me tell you, it was it was actually much worse than I could have ever imagined.
I could say I told you so, but it's not, I don't think I even bothered telling you so. You knew what you were getting into.
I I, I didn't expect it to be great. I'm a little surprised at how bad it was, and how
Do
much of
they
a
do
fuck
like
you
a?
it. I,
Is the love scene like? Does he make you like screw through a hole in a sheet or something?
um. Okay, yeah. Let's get into it. I guess there's very little to say. Sebastian, of course, is the Chantry prince or roguish prince. He's a bow
Oh
and
yeah,
arrow guy. He's worse than Varric, so he's a bummer to use.
I don't
Um,
think we even talked about him really last time
no,
because
we didn't.
you don't recruit him until Act Two,
Yeah, but
even though he appears in Act One.
yeah,
So
let's
yeah,
get right into this guy. This is the DLC character. He's sort of I don't know what is he? He looks like somebody famous kind of, but I don't know.
no, he looks like a handsome white guy. I mean,
Yeah, he's a handsome white guy, and he's a prince whose family has been murdered, and he's looking for revenge. And if you're and he's very into the church. This is his deal. He's he was trained in the church, and now he kind of wants to like put it aside to seek vengeance. And you have to influence him one way or the other in that regard.
His was the ruling family of one of the other city states here that we don't visit, but we hear about.
Starkhaven.
So
Yes.
he's talking about reclaiming it throughout the game. You would think that this would lead up to a big companion quest line wherein you reclaim his throne and title for him. Nope.
Nope.
You go to one of the mansions inside Kirkwall and kill some of the people who killed his family. But at the end of the game, he still has not like really done anything to actually retake his family's rule of that city. It feels like a weird, big dangling thread.
It's DLC too. You would think like, okay, well the point is you're going to resolve this Starkhaven lineage thing. That's going to be the purpose of this, and it's all like on the cutting room floors. I can only assume is what happened. They just ran out of time on this. It's weird they included the character, frankly. I went all out to romance him, and like I said, I've kind of got this, this sort of churchy white lady was my Hawk. Janine Hawk was my character in this one. She really liked him. Really liked that he was into the church. Really liked that he, and also, just in playing the game, you have to have sort of a comfortable relationship with murder. So there's sort of a lot of religious hypocrisy going on as well with mine. So,
I just did not foresee going into at any point during this Bioware Omnibus that you would end up role playing a trad wife.
No, that's exactly what I was going.
40-hour game.
Yeah, I wanted to be like, let's see. And it actually was fascinating. It was really interesting to do this. In most ways, except for the romance with fucking Sebastian here. So he
or not fucking Sebastian, as the case may be.
The swing is if he's a rival and you romance him, which is really hard to pull off, then he becomes the Prince of Starkhaven again, all off camera. There's no mission you can actually go on. But if you are friends with him and romance him, he decides to lose it all and just devote himself to the church and ask you to join him in a chaste marriage. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I was furious. I was just like, oh my God, I'm a fool. Oh, I can't believe I did this. This is the reward for my Hawk. Oh, that sucks. That's...
you made your bed, woman.
I did. Yeah. I got a feeling my Janine is making a lot of beds after the events of this game because I was like, all right, I guess that's what we're doing. I'll play this out to the bitter end. So yeah, my Hawk never gets laid, marries a boring man who refuses to have sex with her, and probably is quite angry. That certainly seems to be how it played out. There's quite a bit of bitterness in my Hawk in the third act of this game, and I pin it to that, actually. I certainly flirted a lot with the Felicia Day elf as a result because I was so horny as a character. It goes nowhere either.
Yeah. We're not getting to Felicia Day today. Not today. That's for next time.
But I don't think I've ever been as thoroughly punished by pursuing a romance option in a video game as I was in this. Like I really felt like I was like, yeah, you really got it, man. Good job.
Okay. Wow. That is. I mean, that's great. That sucks so bad. It's great for the sake of there being variety to these romances. Some of them outright suck. This one.
I have to admit, I did enjoy that. Like, I liked how much it was awful. That was kind of cool.
Yeah. The only other nice thing I can say about Sebastian is the voice actor's got a cool accent.
He does.
Kind of like listening to him talk.
I think a lot of the voice acting's pretty strong in this, honestly. You know, characters like Meryl really, are enhanced by just the lilt that the actor has given it.
Yeah, that's maybe a larger portion of that characterization than it should be, but it still kind of works. And I like the performances of Varric and Fenris even.
Varric's great. I think the vocal performance on Varric really is excellent. Fenris is, I think, as you said, it's just a shame that design is so terrible. It's really hard to get over that, how dumb he looks.
Yeah, he does have a cool storyline, though. I mean, in this, it is a little bit one note. That in each act, somebody's come to capture him, and you help him kill them, and it's just randos. The first act, it's the apprentice to his former master in the second act, and it's the master himself in the third act, of course. That there's some neat twisting going on in the third act there. In this one, it's just you go after the apprentice, and before you can kill her, she says, wait, I have information about your sister who's still alive, and she's not a slave. And he's sort of grappling with whether that's just more of a trap, or he should reach out and contact the sister. Which eventually, I think either way he decides to do it. I don't know. I just told him to do it up front because it felt like there was more content down that road than telling him not to engage with his own plotline.
Well, this is always the problem. Is sort of like, do you want to like play your character, or do you want to have the content? Always sort of the push and pull of these. And I think most people just get the content. I don't know. I think it's when you get into your third playthrough or whatever, you were just like, I'm really gonna lean into this trad wife thing, and that will mean I don't have much Isabel, for example.
Yeah. What else we got going on? Meryl, throughout all this, is trying to repair the Alluvion, magic mirror that I guess we encountered in the first game, right?
Yep. I mean, she is from the Dalish Elf origin. Keeps talking about it. Keeps talking about her relationship with the hero Ferelden. That is something I couldn't believe paid off for me.
And then, it was also in the Witch Hunt DLC from
Very
Legends. If you did that, so everybody else in her clan, especially her, the keeper, the leader, are very against her messing with this. Anyway, I don't know. It felt like maybe they were a little overreacting to Meryl. Maybe I was too snowed by her accent and how sweet and harmless she seems, even knowing kind of where this is going. I guess on the opposing end is what you said, that yes, the mages are just constantly getting possessed by demons here. Of course, that's where this is headed. And everybody else can see that apparently, except for Meryl.
Yeah, like I just all her protestations that no, it's an important piece of Dalish history. I don't want to lose that. That all rings hollow. It really seems like you want to get into some demon shit. Come on. That seems like.
I don't think she ever really succumbs to lust for power exactly, even no matter how you play it.
I guess I don't know. I played it as pretty judgmental towards her, so. I was shocked she stuck with me, honestly. It was really odd because I was nasty to her and I gave her a lot of bad results.
And she is one, with Carver, sure, that makes a lot of sense. And maybe even Fenris, that they're the whole friendship rivalry dynamic and that they will stick with you even when they're rivals. Mm-hmm. She's one where having a rival Meryl doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
That's what I had. Deep rival Meryl. Yeah. And it didn't make a ton of sense. No.
Yeah, what are you still doing here at that point? even like Aveline, I see how we could that she's sort of like obligated as the guard captain to keep tabs on me, but also because of our history together and as refugees, she doesn't want to just throw me in jail.
Yeah,
like I can guide by that. Yeah,
that makes sense. You know, that you're sort of her extra legal friend. That's that causes some conflict for her. That's a cool thing. It wasn't a problem for me this time, but like that seems like one of the more resilient characters, writing wise. Take her an interesting way, no matter what you're doing in the game. Aveline,
yeah,
one of the unsung better characters in BioWare, I think.
I would agree. I like her. I honestly, I have no idea how you even go about getting Varric rivalry.
It can be done, I guess, but it seems really hard. Yeah,
it seems like harder than role playing the trad wife to like Sebastian's fuckless marriage. But
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You'd have to really, because he's pretty accepting. I mean, he's in some ways structurally he's more of the generic BioWare guy, because he's the person who's supposed to kind of be okay whichever way you go. He'll roll with you, and that's kind of I think what the BioWare guy thing is about is they give you somebody who's a bit of made of tissue paper at first, so you don't do nothing you do early on is going to cause too drastic of reactions out of them.
That seems true too. I mean, I kind of like forced him to, stay his hand on some things along the way, but it never really felt like there was any danger of him dropping out of like a high friendship for me.
Yeah, well, it seems like it's if you help him kill his brother, he says thank you.
Yep.
And if you stop him from killing his brother, he says, "How dare you?" And then the next time you go talk to him, says, "Actually, thank you for that." Which is how a lot of the writing in these things in these type of games goes. Really, is that they are looking for. I mean, that is the tightrope and the challenge of this type of narrative. Is trying to find ways for there to be narrative consequence to your decisions, but also never actually punish the player for anything, except for Mary Sebastian.
Oh boy. I mean, I remember, like, I don't know, you can see this stuff happen a little bit more directly in, like, even Mass Effect. They had a better handle on it mechanically there, for sure. I mean, but that's just sort of, that's a high bar to clear in any case. Like, you can screw up your relationship with Thane, for example, in a way that I don't know if you can here. You kind of have to go out of your way in most cases. Well, I don't know. Isabel is kind of like that, You have to work hard to keep her on your team throughout this entire game, probably.
True.
But that almost feels like it just sort of it got a little complicated and got away from him a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Who else do we got? Anders doesn't do much in Act 2. What's his thing?
Well, so with Meryl, is this? I think in Act 2 is where we get our fade sequence, right? Is that where?
Oh, that's right.
That's her.
Yeah.
Which is not nearly as. I mean, they learned their lesson from Origin, so like we're not going to do a 4-hour fade thing here.
It's a half hour. It's fairly brief. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You get a little vignette that. I mean, this is. I just like that. This is good usage of the game system and all how you're going through the fade, trying to help some mage who's trapped there, and he's being tempted by these different demons, and depending on who you brought with you in your party, different demons will tempt them with different things. So Isabella will be tempted by a demon of lust, and Fenris will be tempted by a rage demon, and Meryl will be tempted by a pride demon, I think. And depending on their friendship levels with you, they will either resist temptation or betray you, and you'll have to fight them in the fade and then complete it without them. Meryl, I think, no matter what the friendship level is, always betrays you, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like part of the next part of her character quest is dealing with feelings about that. But that's just, that's using the BioWare system.
Aveline betrayed me in the fade, which was really surprising to me because I had her high up on the friendship level, if not all the way up. And she still turned on me. And it was like a sore point for the rest of our relationship.
Yeah, she also seems like somebody who just would not really be quick to betray, even when it was warranted. That she's stalwart and all.
Yeah. I mean, he offered her dead husband back or something like that. So,
Oh.
fair enough. But even still, I was disappointed. It's a demon. It's a demon, Eveline. Come on.
We've all been through this like 50 times by now.
Yeah. But it did, the scenes where she felt bad about it afterwards were really well written, like,
Right. Yeah.
So fair enough. It worked, writing wise. And, I don't know, gave that relationship a dimension it did not otherwise have.
Yeah. And it's pretty interesting here that there's this elf boy that you're helping there that has some mage superpower. Sort of I guess he's Dr. Sleep, basically. I haven't seen that movie still, but
it's not really. Well, anyway, yeah, okay.
He's got the special shine that makes he's a dreamer. And anyway, you do a couple of side quests. You did a quest for him to help him out in the first act, and now this is the second act. And so you're going. You have to go interrupt the demons tempting him and do little dream scenarios with him, where you can kind of cut straight through it all and be like, "Hey, wake up, man! That's a demon tempting you." Or you can play act as you're his mother in this one. And if you just cut straight through the bullshit, that works, but the end result is not as good. Whereas if you play act it all out, he has when it resolves, he has gained enough confidence to control his power, and he will. You have more options than murdering him in the fade, which makes him tranquil. And that's just it's sort of under the hood, interesting narrative mechanics how they build this stuff in. I like it. I think when it's not just totally giving you the green door, red door at the end, make your decision regardless of anything else that's happened. It's the things you did along the way dictate the outcome, but you're never given the binary choice between A or B.
This is one of those cool Bioware things where it's not really apparent necessarily your first time through if you did something wrong, or was there another way you could have gone? And the answer is surprisingly often yes. You could have done it differently and got a better result. In this case, I could have, but that's again, third time through, I'm kind of just I'm leaning more on the role play this particular character version of it, and so I mean, no patience for mages really from me.
Well, this stuff is built around that, allowing you to do that. I worry that over time it's become less prevalent because it's just sort of it's set up to get them the wrong feedback. The developers, where when something like that happens, like you said, it doesn't register for you right away.
You want that dopamine
that could have happened.
You don't want missable content in your game for the most part. I don't know. I mean, I think,
but people will if they don't get the binary choose side A or side B at the very last second. People will bitch about that, about not having enough player choice involved.
There are games that are doing this in a more extreme way at this point. Baldur's Gate 3, which I don't know, maybe someday we'll talk about. I think they're more than half of that game you cannot see your first time through. It's an incredible wealth of missable content going on there. It sort of demands replay for a game that takes 100 hours or more to play.
That was part of in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. That was definitely the case.
Yeah, I guess that's exactly right. And they're going very far in that direction there. BioWare seems to have they backed off it. Yeah. Although their output is pretty. I mean, in the last 10 years, it's pretty limited.
Right.
So who even knows what that means anymore? It's a conversation for later for sure. We're still in BioWare Prime with this game. Right. And again, I think it's just a time crunch problem here to actually pinpoint. Is it intended that you miss some of this stuff? Is kind of hard to do in this game, just because who knows what was intended. And the intentions crash up against just the time window, not allowing them to carry out the intentions to their fullest. Anyway, so it's harder to say than it is with even Inquisition. Very much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or Mass Effect 2 or whatever else. But yeah, who are there? We didn't talk about Anders.
What's he been doing in Act 2?
The second
Not
act.
Much.
This is where he's freaking out about. He found some notes about the Tranquil solution, which is sort of a rogue Templar is trying to convince the Dragon Age Pope to authorize just a full purging of all the mages. And he's convinced that this is a conspiracy that the sort of where the Archbishop of Kirkwall, the Grand Clare, I guess they're called, is working with them, with the Templars to do this. It turns out to be a lot more limited than that so far, because it's mainly just this one guy and his little group of fanatics he's drummed up. But it leads to a very frustrating fight.
I don't know. I like you, even though I was doing pretty well with the combat in this game. It became such a chore that I dropped it down to normal as well, simply because I didn't care to mess with it very much.
I played 90% of it on hard.
Same-ish.
But I turned it down from. I mean, I did all of Origins on Nightmare.
Nightmare. Wow.
But I think this one particular is one where I ended up turning it down to normal. It's just when this game is difficult. It's difficult in such a frustrating way because it's where they're just doing these mobs and mobs and mobs of enemies.
Yeah. And
they'll put you in a very confined space where you don't really have a lot of mobility to deal with them. And it's just aggravating.
Treating this game as a strategic combat is really frustrating. Like that doesn't really work, you know?
That was such a strength of Origins, though.
Yeah. It's a bad design. I don't think going full on action game was necessarily wrong, but I mean, I don't think they got there. Still designed around having like strategy. You know, like you need a debuff, and then you can hit these things better. You know, that's part of it still, but it's not easy or fun to do or worthwhile to do. So you know, it's a bit at odds with itself.
Yeah, but like I mentioned last time, the frustrating part of that is that debuffs generally aren't worth investing in. Because what they're just throwing trash mobs at you.
Nope.
And even when you apply it, they're gone and replaced by 15 more so quickly that it doesn't feel like it was worth it. But yeah, it's aggravating. I don't feel like when I'm struggling with a fight that I have a bunch of like, okay, I'm going to try something completely different now. Which in Origins, I did feel like I could try different things. Even
Inquisition does that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not in here. Not here. Here it's just like, let's get this over with. You know, this fucking bone pit fight sucks. Let's finish it off.
Oh yeah, look, we're not even going to talk about the bone pit. The bone pit is a waste of time.
Well, all the fights are. Can you think of a good fight that like an exciting combat scenario in this game? I don't think there are any.
Only in the DLC.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So now, I mean, look, the point of this game is the Templars and the Mages relationship. That sort of undergirds the whole thing, and most of the more interesting side quests are kind of laying track for that, setting up that.
That's what we're going to get into in Act 3. In Act 2, the main conflict is with the Kunari.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah.
So there's also the other thing in Act 2 that we didn't mention. I think we have to is the stuff with your mother and the serial killer.
Huge. Yeah.
Which, man, it goes freaking hard.
Still, to this day, kind of shocking. Kind of like, you can't save her, dude. There's nothing you can do about this.
And it's like Silence of the Lambs shit.
Yeah, but like your mom will always get murdered by this sort of lonely heart serial killer kind of thing. It's really creepy and upsetting. Yeah, and it happens so fast.
There is a running side quest, or I guess maybe it's a main quest. It's hard to tell sometimes what's a main quest and what's a side quest in this game. But there was a quest line in the first act about trying to track down a serial killer, and he gets away, and then he resurfaces in this act and targets your mother and cuts off her head and puts it on a body to make a flesh golem recreation of his lost love. And it is fucked up, like you said.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Honestly, it's a lot darker than anything else in the game. Anything else in any Bioware game, really. This is just a real rough thing to hit you with, especially since it's not like this is not some like crazy thing that you kind of have to work for, Easter egg style. You know, like this is just this happens no matter what. You know, like wow, oh shit, that you can't kind of believe it happens when it goes down. It's I wouldn't go as far as to say like the mother is like an important or well-drawn character, but she's part of the family unit that you have that you see every time you go back to your base of operations, and you say, what's going on with you? Oh, you're dating somebody. That's nice.
Yeah, she's not a bad character, for
No.
a video game mother. She's relatively, believable. And I didn't have this super deep relationship with my mother in this game, but doing this, I mean, it was effective at making me care about my hawk more. That
Hmm.
for as much as this of all video games, more particularly RPGs, and even more particularly this one, is about just gassing up the player character at every opportunity. And oh my God, champion of Kirkwall, you are so amazing, and only you could have done this, and blah blah blah. This game, it goes this incredibly hard way to sort of also deal Hawk some losses. Like by the third act of this game, you have lost your family except for your drunk uncle. Kind of.
Yeah, you can't lose him. Oddly enough, it's
isn't that the way it is in life too?
The champion of Kirkwall stuff, the usual power fantasy that you get out of these games, it definitely is more curdled here than in any other one. I think, like it's present, but you're kind of constantly aware of the compromises and the things you've lost, or I don't know, maybe it just seems that way. Maybe it's an unintentional side effect of some of the development of it, but you don't feel like a super badass, really. Even I guess a little by the end, when everyone is kind of asking what you think about stuff, like, well, you're an important figure in the city, but even still, like, hell, Knight Commander Meredith threw the dead mom in my face at one point, and I was just like, yeah, that was fucked up. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is useful in that sense too. Like, even if you're a mage, it seems like you would naturally side with the mages against the Templars, but having the Templars be able to throw that back in your face and be like, "Come on, man,
Mm-hmm.
you know this better than anybody. How bad it gets when these guys turn bad, which happens all the time,
all the time with every mage, pretty much." I mean, is there a mage that like makes the right? I guess you can. I don't know. There's that weird guy who goes to the brothel. He doesn't necessarily consort with demons, but like, it seems like the mages make the wrong choice every single time, and so it's hard to trust them ever in this game.
I mean, or the level of oppression they have to deal with pushes them into it eventually.
Well, yeah, that's what's going
inexorably.
But it is a real catch-22, and that and. I mean, my trad wife had more ground to stand on than I expected.
Yeah, this is the thing. I got, what? Let's deal with the Kunari and then circle back to the conflict. Because the Kunari are, it's some of the better stuff in this game.
Mm-hmm.
That there has been a shipload of Kunari that sort of wrecked near Kirkwall and have set up shop. The ruling class of Kirkwall is kind of afraid of dealing with them too directly, so they just kind of gave them their own little corner of town, and are hoping that they'll just leave of their own accord, which they claim they will as soon as they do so, satisfy the demands of the Kun.
Yeah,
but we don't know what that means until this act, where it comes out that they are searching for some sort of artifact that was stolen from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then further, that Isabella was the one who stole it.
Yeah, and they cannot go home until they have acquired this again. It's not unlike the thing with Sten and his sword in the first game. This is part of their deal. If they can't leave until the job is complete, if the job is impossible to complete, well, guess what? Fuck you. You're not going anywhere because of your religious beliefs. It is an oppressive society. I think they do a pretty frankly, they do a better job of making this make sense than some of the mages stuff. In a way, it's really interesting. The Arishok, who I guess serves as sort of the big boss of Act 2 of this game, is a fantastic.
He's your final fight.
Yeah, a terrific villain. And I guess not even a villain, I guess.
Antagonist, though.
Yeah, definitely, the guy that you're fighting. And this much like the thing with the mages and the Templars, this is a ongoing theme of the Dragon Age universe, the relationship that the Kunari have with Thedas. And this is the game that does a lot of the heavy lifting. To kind of make it make sense and make it interesting. All this stuff is, it's the Act 2 plot line, but this kind of changes their relationship with whatever you're doing for the rest of these games, and deepens what was there in the first one too. It's great. Yeah. It's great stuff. And I don't know. What do you think of the overt horned ogre kind of look that they're fully committing to here? I kind of like it.
I'm not totally a fan of that. The horns are a bit much for me, but I don't begrudge them necessarily. Well, here's what I don't like in this game is how their skin looks like just concrete gray.
That's not a great design.
Well, one of the main design faults of this game is that everything feels a little too washed of color, and that is most apparent with the Kunari designs, I feel.
It's true.
But yeah, I mean, they're doing a thing. I don't mind. I mean, the cool thing about the Kunari is that they feel like the most original part of this world, which is otherwise a patchwork of fantasy tropes that we're familiar with from other series. And this, the Kunari and their role in it, for as much as there's some like vague parallels to like, historical tensions between Muslim and Christian empires, they are a new creation. So they wanted to do a design that was more than just, big guy with dreadlocks. Mm-hmm. I'll give them that. I don't know. The horns, maybe they gross me out a little. I'm not sure.
I mean, I think that they are distinctive, and I don't know. D&D kind of has a version of this. They got like tieflings or dragonborn. There's fun in playing monster people. That's a good time. Everyone wants to be a bit of a monster person from now on, again, and they become playable characters after this game. I think that this is the work that they put in Dragon Age 2 is why these become playable characters going forward. You can always add Kunari to your roster of what you can be beyond elves, dwarves, and men in Dragon Age after this. And, honestly, when I picked up Inquisition, the first thing I did was like, hell yeah, I'm going to be a Kunari. I'm absolutely going to check that out. I want some horns. And it was fun. I might do it again as we go through these. So, I think ultimately, I think this was a very successful design choice and gives these guys a little bit more personality and distinct visual, just in the silhouette, to be a thing, to stand next to elves and dwarves.
That is, that's certainly true. I don't know. I don't think I can choose the Kunari as much as like, yes, that's a good thing that Inquisition did was allow that as a choice. I just don't think I want to roleplay as a Kunari because, I don't like the Kunari as a culture.
Well, you don't have to be all in on the Kun. You can
that's,
be like, yeah, what are they actually? They're not, that's not the name of the race. It's,
Kosseth, I believe is the name of the race.
Kosseth. Uh-huh. So you could,
I can be a Tal Vashon. Yeah. Well, that's it. I would be all out. I would be all the way out on the Kun. That's my thing. And like I said, I don't like them as a race in terms of like, or as a religion, as a culture, whatever. I like them as a fantasy culture, as a part of this world, but not as one that I'm asked to side with.
Well, yeah, you don't want to be part of a restrictive religious order of some kind, based on deprivation and no choices.
I mean, I respect a little how upfront they are about all that. Yeah. They don't try and dress it up. You maybe have to hand them to them a little bit there, but ultimately, I don't want to live in that. But that is still an interesting force within this world, and it makes the Arishok an interesting antagonist, like you said.
He's cool.
He has,
and he actually is. That's an interesting fight. That is one of the very few interesting fights in this.
That was a difficult one for me. I eventually. The way I beat that is at some point he picked me up on a sword and chucked me through a wall and to the other side of a locked door where I just was still able to put lightning storms into the room on the other side of the door and just just did that.
Cool. I mean, that's how you win in Dark Souls sometimes. You got to cheese it. That's fun.
Yeah. At that point I was past caring about trying to play Dragon Age 2 by the combat system fair, give the combat system a fair shake. But the other cool thing about this storyline is that it does put you at odds with Isabella, who has now endangered the entirety of the city, because eventually the Kunari get so frustrated with the Viscount's son tries to convert to the Qun, and some of the anti-Qunari fanatics kill him, and then he rises up, kills the Viscount, takes a bunch of the nobility hostage, and
beheads the Viscount and throws his head down the steps of the Capitol building like something from Apocalypto. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was sort of the centerpiece of the cinematic trailer for this game. It was just a reenactment of that. But no, it creates a good climax for this act, I will say. Sort of the whole city is in flames at a certain point, and you have to go duel the Arashok. Or I guess depending how you play it, you can just fight, your group against all of his group. I think might be even harder than doing the one-on-one duel. That's
what I ended up doing, and it was very hard. Yes,
I did the duel. It just felt like that dramatically was what the game wanted me to do.
I agree.
I'm honestly, the champion of curveball.
I'm honestly not sure how I managed to miss the duel. It's what I was kind of looking for, and it's like, oh, just everyone. Oh shit. Okay, fine, we're in, and so it goes. I thought he respected me. Not so much, as it turns out. I guess I'm too much of an institutionalist.
Yeah, it might have had something to do with how you resolved one of the other Qunari-related plot lines leading up to this.
Yeah, I mean, I gave up Isabella right away.
Yeah. Well. So that's the thing. Like, when you find out that it's Isabella, she runs away. And because I was in a romance with her, she came back. To return the book, the religious text or whatever that she had stolen, and there is an opportunity at that point to then just completely sell her out and say, oh, you take her anyway.
Oh, that's fun.
And it's pretty rough in the YouTube cutscene I saw.
There are some surprising opportunities to be very evil in this game. That I can't imagine ever really taking, but they certainly make for interesting YouTube clips.
I wasn't able to be that evil. I'm like, still too much of a general nice guy. I don't know. More my role playing characters are too much people pleasers sometimes to get to the outer edges of the content trees.
Well, it's just honestly hard to justify most of the time if you're role playing the character,
right?
I guess you could, if you kind of reverse engineered it. I tried that with Origins this last time, and even that I found difficult, to get the truly nasty endings, because it just doesn't make sense to do so unless you want that specific content.
I think my first time through, a decade ago, if I remember correctly, I think I still did kill Isabella and Anders in that playthrough, even though I was being a generally nice guy, but with enough of a edge, like, all right, you know what? Once you get to the point where you're putting entire cities or nations at risk, we still have capital punishment around here.
Yeah, I mean, Anders definitely got killed this time. But okay, so I don't know. I mean, that's Act 2. It's it's maybe half the length of Act 1. I appreciated that. It moves a little faster, but yeah, it's. Man, getting tired of these maps and this combat at this point. And I'm kind of just like, okay, wrap it up. Rapido. No more. Let's knock this out now. Moving into Act 3.
So in Act 3, we have another time jump of a couple of years. And there's no new Viscount. The Knight Commander of the Templars has sort of taken over as the de facto leader of the city because they've sort of claimed a constant state of crisis since the Qunari uprising.
Martial
law. It's focused on the mage threat and how there's all these blood mages running around in secret. There's a bit of Red Scare aspect to it that they see blood mages everywhere, except that we know from our experiences that they actually kind of are, if not everywhere, they're in half of wares.
Yeah, it's amazing how many times you're like, you're dealing with a mage, and if you say you just give them enough no's or answers they don't want, they'll just be like, all right, well, fine then. You leave me no choice. Demons! It happens at least a half a dozen times.
Yeah.
Sometimes as major plot movements of the game, sometimes just incidental encounters. It feels like it's kind of the end result of any time that a mage doesn't get what they want in this game. So it's stacking the deck a little bit. It's doing the Zootopia thing. Does that make sense if I say that?
I mean, I know that that's a movie, but I didn't.
Okay, yeah. Zootopia is a Disney cartoon, and it's kind of built on the premise of this is a metaphor for minorities within cities. The predators in the Zootopia world are sort of second-class citizens, because their people are scared of them, and they kind of have to take mood-suppressing drugs or commit to lifestyles that suppress their inherent desire to kill their fellow citizens. It's
way more like culturally,
it's wild,
like sci-fi, like ambitious than I thought that movie was.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like I think it just comes from like, well, we're gonna write a city where all the animals live together. What would the dynamic of that be? Oh, well, it doesn't actually work because half of the animals eat the other half. That's sort of the food chain. And they have to figure a way around that, and they're also trying to say something culturally, about protected classes and culture and elites, and it's just because, but you do kind of have to worry that these people are going to eat you. Is the thing that is not that doesn't mirror any sort of real life thing.
That's where these metaphors break down sometimes. And certainly in this case, yes, you're right, because if you're an antelope in that city, you'd have cause to be worried about the lions running free. That does not track 1-to-1 on if you're,
it's not the same as
if I'm worried about my Haitian neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of it's kind of a fucked up movie, honestly, if you really want to like parse it and deal with it beyond the most surface level, which is where it wants you to. But I think we got a similar thing here.
I was going to compare the Mage Templar stuff to the X-Men, because that's another case where it's like, okay, the sort of socio-political allegory is so clear. And yes, like I'm on the side of the minority being oppressed, but also if there were mutants in the real world, I would be 100% in favor of the Mutant Registration Act. Like, if people could actually control fire and throw my car into the sun with their mind, like, we need different rules at that point. It's not like driving a car.
That's true, and I mean that is what is sort of. I mean, the thing about X-Men is it's sort of inherently that's what it's about, that dynamic, and so that's kind of the perfect version of this, the best version of this. There's 1,000 stories about that you can tell within that universe, and it all kind of makes sense, and that's why Magneto is such a compelling character. It just becomes, it feels like they don't hit that level here with Dragon Age. The lack of good mages, I would say, is an issue here. I mean, I guess not in Dragon Age as a whole, but in this particular game, I don't know. I guess Bethany, my sister, is a pretty good mage.
Bethany, Marilyn Anders,
is a blood mage.
Well, right. I think they're presuming a level of affection for them as your party members.
I guess
that overrides the fact that neither of them are really like poster children for responsible, free magedom. They both do fuck with demons quite extensively.
There's also an obvious Professor X too, in Orsino, the head enchanter of Kirkwall, and man, does he disappoint in the end! Like outrageous. So this might be a rush thing as well. Again, you can't ever really tell, but I don't really care. I think this is still pretty fascinating because this is not trying to be a perfect 1-to-1. This is a fantasy world scenario.
Right, and it's trying to be more true to the internal reality of that world than it is to make a clear, socio-political allegory.
Which is the way to go.
I think that's yes, precisely. That's always the way to go. Better than the other route. But I guess we should run through like what is does Sebastian do anything in this third act? Does he have?
He sucks. I'll tell you that much. But other than that, no, not really. He has shockingly few things to do the whole game through, and aside from telling me he wants to be my chaste husband in the within the sight of the of the Chantry, and that's it. Really, no, he sucks, and makes me feel bad. That was it. That's
Okay.
it. Who else is doing stuff?
Varric doesn't have much. I think you have to go back to the sort of estate where he killed his brother.
He sold the house,
through it
and
again.
it's haunted. So they're trying to sue him, and he's in some hot soup or something, and we got to go check it out. Yeah. I don't know. Haunted house mission is kind of cool.
It'd be great if it wasn't always the same house.
Yeah.
It's like the same layout as your house.
Yeah. All the rich houses are, basically the same. So yeah, that's okay. Haunted mansion mission, fine. Not too much going on. This game is kind of like, okay, we will wrap things up. The third act is definitely the shortest, so you kind of get one little quest line with everybody, and that's about it. Do the mage thing.
Like you're saying, how much shorter the second, third acts are than the first one. It all felt. Just the drag. I was feeling the drag so much.
I agree. I mean, it's I think the second and third act is about the length of the first act. You put them together.
I don't know.
But it is all the same. It's not. It doesn't feel that delineated because it's the same fucking maps and it's just going to the same places and they haven't changed. So it's just more of the same shit. And yeah, third act of this game, I'm very much just like, let's wrap this up, finish this, please. And I feel the game at least is. I don't know. You got fucking bone pit missions and stuff. It goes on too long. No question about that.
Yeah. So I still had Isabella had come back and is still,
right.
My girlfriend at this point. Mm-hmm. So we were dealing with, there's somebody that's been kind of after her from the beginning because her backstory is that she ended up in Kirkwall because she was a pirate smuggler or whatever, and was put in charge of a ship of a slave shipment that she, does not approve of that and freed them and is now being hunted by the slaver consortium. And so the guy that she's been talking about throughout shows up for the third act, and you have to deal with him finally once and for all. That's, fine. It's exactly what you expect from that plot line. The only thing I want to mention about Isabel in Act 3 is that at this point, having sort of wifed her up and got her to come back and save the city rather than run away and save herself, she is now like done the face turn, I guess. She's
sure
sort of later seasons of Buffy Spike type character, and the writing around that is actually kind of fun. How she's a little disappointed in herself for like how domesticated she's become, and like what kind of pirate am I? You've got me doing all this do-gooder crap, but she still she says it with affection for your player character. It's I like the way it's written. With a level of self-awareness that's not like too cloying.
Definitely a character I wish I had spent more time with on the whole. I just did not match my my stated goals for this character. But I mean, for God, how much happier would I have been to be in an Isabella romance than with Sebastian? Oh, well, so it goes. There won't be another time when I do. Nope. I don't think I'll be revisiting Dragon Age 2 again, I'm afraid. No,
I don't think you will. Maybe they do remakes someday if they did like a legend. It would have to be more like the Mass Effect
up remake. Yeah. But even still,
it couldn't even just be the Mass Effect Legendary.
Mm-hmm. No, not a chance. So I guess I'll live in YouTube cutscenes for me if at all.
So okay, Aveline here is now married to her guardsman Beau. And there's a thing. Her storyline in Act 3 is that there's sort of a conspiracy to tar her and depose her as guard captain. Turns out to be run by the corrupt guard captain that we overthrew in the first act to put her in place in the beginning.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's more time with Aveline, which is some of the better. It feels like time better spent than a lot of the other fetch quests.
Yep.
So it's not. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but I didn't mind that.
Yeah, we were besties, so no problem there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Meryl stuff can be pretty earth-shattering.
I had the bad one of that. Let me tell
you. I was not aiming for the bad. I was aiming for the good outcome, and then I stepped out of the cave after we dealt with the of course, the demon that came through the Alluvion and possessed the keeper. We had to kill the keeper, and we got there, and her whole clan's out there. And I was like, "All right, guys, calm down." It wasn't the keeper sacrificed herself, blah blah blah. I'm being diplomatic, and they basically, fuck you, flat ears, and they all attack, and we had to kill every single person in this clan.
Yep, all of them.
Felt very abrupt that turn.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, this is what happened to me too. And I think this is hard to avoid.
Yeah,
I think this is.
I guess that's where they want you to end up, kind of.
Because I shut Meryl down on the mirror. I was just like, no, you can't do the demon mirror. You stupid. I'm not giving you access to it. I'm not doing it. Like I said no at every turn here, and it still somehow worked out that, that it all, that the demon still possessed the keeper. We still had to go up there. And I mean, if I had just not done the content, I think then it wouldn't have happened,
Right.
Like if I had just chosen not to respond to the quest marker, I think then you would avoid it. But like, I think if you do it, you're just all in on this. I think
there is a way if you're
like a way to walk through the raindrops and somehow save the clan. It must exist in the game, but
you can talk them down if you have enough. I don't know what
riz, if you have enough riz, right?
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I mean, I couldn't have been more negative towards all of Meryl's Alluvion plans. I'm openly hostile to mages. I don't quite understand what happened here.
I like how, I mean, one would expect Fenris to be hostile towards Meryl about this because he's very anti-mage generally, even though she's like trying to be like, but do we have any like elf solidarity? And he's like, no, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I have no solidarity with your people, and your magic is bullshit, and I hate you. Which, great, that works for Fenris. I like how they have Anders be so hostile to her.
You're making us look bad. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. There's that, and it's like she's like, you did something very similar to this. And he's like, no, it's different, but also like I know even I did the good version, and it's still not a good idea. So you should really not be doing this. And that's just again, like I was saying earlier, especially as we get deeper into a Bioware game, I like how when my companions have developed individual relationships among themselves that aren't just about how I'm everybody's best friend.
Yes, that is fun. And another thing that even in what I imagine is a compromised version is still present in this version of the game, and it's impressive for that. Like there's clever writing here. It's not 1-to-1 like all the mages are kind of together. It's no one is ideologically. There's no ideological blocks. Like even within their own circumstances, everyone has kind of a unique take on this that doesn't align with everyone else. So they're talking about this constantly, and this is all the good chewy Bioware stuff. Like this is as good as Bioware gets in some ways in these interactions. This is why this cast I think is underrated. It's how good it gets, especially in the third act with one another.
It is good, that. Particularly, I mean, when you're playing as a mage, I think it helps give some shading to this. That everybody has opinions about this central conflict with the mages and the Templars. Only Anders, though, is like a really hard line one in one of the other. I mean, I guess Fenris is sort of on the other side of that, but even that will be tempered by your relationship to him. And they'll they have. If you're a mage, especially, everybody has to kind of acknowledge. Well, there's some good ones. He's one, like Fenris will say he's one of the good ones in so many words. But nobody's like super hard line, and one that's good because it allows you to keep the group together until the end of the game. If you're trying to, believably, and it allows for them to be taking their cues from your player decisions. Which is part of what you want in this game, although it's also part of what I bristle against when it feels like it's contorting everything to try and suit my whims, even if my whims are horribly inconsistent.
Well, I mean, Meryl, I think, is the one that kind of this falls apart a little bit with, honestly.
Yeah, but even she is not a huge... She's not with Anders. necessarily. She's her own
I
like
suppose.
approach to magic.
I find it hard to believe at the end when I was like, well, I think the answer is we just got to kill all the mages. And she's like, oh, I guess you're right. That didn't feel accurate to me necessarily.
Right. Well, we're about to get to the end, and we'll see that. But
Yeah.
The only other one is the end of the Fenris storyline, which the cool thing. Well, yeah, but they find out that he reached out to his sister, and his sister betrayed him to brought Daenerys and laid the trap for him, and he is upset by that. And then she reveals, because he doesn't remember anything really before he had his ritual that gave him the magic tattoos that fuel his special powers. And she reveals there that he fought for the privilege of getting those tattoos.
Yeah.
He like killed other slaves to get them. And that kind of throws him for a loop. And so at least there's like some twist to that character there.
This is sort of, I don't know, there's versions of this in Mass Effect. I feel like this is, it's kind of a rug pull family dynamic thing. Very Miranda, very Jack. It's
very Jack. Yeah.
Yeah. And it works again, actually, it's fine.
Is it the inverse of Jack? Because the Jack reveal is that she thought that the other kids that like at her prison camp facility were all attacking her, like helping the guards try and keep her. They all
hated her, yeah, but they were just sort of being fed to her, to Jack,
right? Yeah, she was I guess that is still, she was more of a villain of her own story than she thought. So maybe it is the same thing. Okay. Yeah, but whatever. That there are, when you're up in 75 or 80 different companion characters over the course of multiple franchises, you're going to hit some of the same tropes.
Well, I mean, I think it's fine in this case. Like, I think when you kind of start noticing, like, on Mass Effect 2, everyone's got a fucking daddy issue in this, then it's a little more prominent. And even then, it doesn't bother me. Those are still all great. So I don't mind. It's kind of just fun. And, it's like, you read a Stephen King book, there's going to be a writer in Maine at some point. It's just part of the thing, part of the authorship voice of Bioware at some point.
Sure. So the last one is Anders. So throughout this act, Anders he's becoming more radicalized in his party interactions. That he's getting more combative with everybody, even the ones that are kind of on his side.
Yeah.
And he asks you to help him gather up some ingredients to do a ritual that will help him like separate justice from him permanently, so he can go back to being a normal human. But there's some like sort of Easter egg things that if like the ingredients are like a very slightly modulated form of saltpeter, and there's something else like that. Basically, he's making a bomb, and you can put that together, I guess, if you know how gunpowder is made. But the character does not.
Pretty cool, yeah.
And this is, of course, leading up to the as the Knight Commander is becoming more and more crazed and stamping down harder and harder on the mages. Eventually, it all kind of blows up literally because Anders blows up the Chantry building, the big church, and the Archbishop lady with it. And this kicks off a full-blown the Knight Commander says, well, that's it. We're killing every mage in town. And it becomes a full-blown civil war. The mages revolting against the Templars.
Yeah. Which in the context of the larger Dragon Age saga, this is sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, and it plunges the entire continent into magic civil war. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, this is a fantastic development for the series as a whole. The Mage Templar conflict always kind of been one of the more interesting aspects of the story. It's full on become like the Genophage level of importance and just sort of like strength and storytelling potential here. This is what makes this game so awesome, really, at least narratively.
But it's what the detractors will complain about, is that it is sort of divorced from your decisions as a player.
And how I flat out refused to help Anders, and it still went down. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you help the mages, you help the Templars. Either way, both the leader of the Templars and the leader of the mages is going to go insane and become a monster that you have to kill.
Sure are, yeah. Which fine, Meredith, they put in the work to make that make sense. That's the Knight Commander. Orsino, this is the Professor X figure I was talking about. He just all of a sudden just like snaps and was like, fuck it, I'm summoning demons, and everyone's just like, no, that betrays everything about you. And he's like, I don't care, it's happening. And and you get a fight out of it, a kind of a cool one. But it's not good writing necessarily.
I don't mind it. I think everybody's at the end of their ropes by that point, and he's. Mm-hmm. I buy that.
How effective would it have been if he like refused to do that though? How much would that have like really, really juiced up the conflict in an interesting way? If there was one fucking mage who was like, I'm drawing the line, I won't do that because not all mages have to do that, and he's the perfect one to do that. He's Professor X.
I think there's a statement in having your Professor X go nuts and becoming a Kira monster.
Yeah. But
it makes him different than makes him different than the X-Men dynamic. But
right, yeah.
But I hear you, and I think that maybe it would have been nice. Maybe that could be a thing that depends on your player choices and interactions with him, whether he holds.
Yeah, I actually drove him to it this time. I was a right asshole to the mages this time, so it was a little more justified in this case because they are without options. But if you are a full on like mage and enthusiast helping the mages, and probably interacting a lot more with Orsino, I imagine it's really annoying when he does that at the end.
Yeah. But also, yeah, like you said, this is a thing that I don't think can be put in the player's hands. It's important for the entire world and the series and the lore for this war to begin.
Yes.
And I also like that does, it tempers some of my reservations about being the champion of Kirkwall and how everything's about how amazing my one guy is. That none of that really matters. This is ultimately the story of how that guy failed to stop this. No matter how it plays out. Yeah,
it's great. It's not there's no quest to save the world. Mm-hmm. The world is collapsing into civil war no matter what you do. And so, all the champion of Kirkwall stuff is a little hollow. They think, Cassandra thinks you're the villain kind of throughout the game. Like that's the framing device is that you are a conflicted character no matter what. And this is what differentiates this from every other Dragon Age game is you are not saving the world from some supernatural anything. You are kind of just present during interesting times. And, it kind of works out for you financially. You get a little famous during it, but mostly you are a witness to things unraveling, which is such a cool premise for an RPG. It's you just don't see this in many of them. I mean, I'm sure they exist, but it's a pretty big genre. I'm not familiar with all of it. There's an enormous amount of JRPGs out there that I'm sure do something similar, but I
don't know. JRPGs JRPGs are real big on having you go slay God at the end.
Yeah. Yes. But there's got to be versions of this, but it feels unique to me, not the most well-read fantasy fan out there.
No, but we have a breadth of this, just having done. This is our eighth game in this series.
Right, yeah.
It feels unique, if only in the context of the Bioware Omnibus here.
Very much so. It makes me want to love this game. Mission. It makes me want to say, champion it. And
unfortunately, the game part of it keeps pushing you away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The eternal push-pull of Dragon Age 2.
All right, so we got one more time to talk about Dragon Age 2. Next week, I think we'll come back and we'll talk about the DLC packs and how this fits into the screen adaptation that we started laying out last time.
Yeah, well, couldn't help but think about that. It's such an interesting story. Yeah,
I think it works great for that purpose.
Yes, it does.
Stuff is so disconnected from the gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll talk about that next time. Thank you for joining us for this. This has been interesting, to say the least. And, we'll come back for one last time on Dragon Age 2. Later.